Hello, and thank you for joining the webcast for the Allegro Network Multimeter 2.5. My name is Klaus Degner, and I'm one of the founders and product manager of the Allegro Network Multimeter. Today, I would like to do a small walkthrough through a short list of the new features of the Allegro. Getting to the first item, let me switch to my web interface. I'm right now on one Allegro 1000 with the firmware 2.50 release candidate 1, which we released. We added a lot of big features where you see only a little, so which have been more architectural side. And we also added a lot of, let's say, small bug fixes, enhancements, improvements. And the easiest feature, well, or the most visible feature that we added is the WebShark integration. That was a very big customer request that, yes, the Allegro can very good record packets, can very good select specific packets, but how can I easily look into the packets? And let me just pick one simple example. So what happens if I see all DHCP traffic? Or let's go by application in this case. So what happens if we have a specific protocol which we are interested in? So let's take DHCP, for example. And now we zoom out a little bit. So let's say to the last day. And whenever we see, okay, what happened on DHCP this morning, I can zoom in. It was only 44 kilobyte, but what is new now is that this capture dialog has also the option for the WebShark preview. What does it mean? This means the capture will be stored temporarily in the RAM disk of the Allegro. And once it's captured, it will be displayed in the web interface with a WebShark view. And this is very similar to Wireshark. There's a Wireshark server running in the background. And this helps a lot because here you can now see easily a lot of things on packet level. So what was the protocol, what was the frame, everything, which makes it a lot easier to work with because you don't have to install Wireshark. So this even works on a tablet, on a mobile phone, and it works on restricted PCs where you don't have Wireshark installed. It's only a subset for Wireshark, but it's very helpful. For the release 2.5, we integrated the WebShark engine for up to 1 megabyte PCAPs. So if it's a bigger one, you only see the first megabyte. We plan to improve this file size with the next releases. It's just in terms of stability, we have to do a lot more testing and a lot of more configuration. The Wireshark feature needs a few megabytes of the in-memory database. If you're not interested in using this feature, you can turn this off in the settings. So there's a settings menu in global settings where you can enable this WebShark or not. If you have, for example, Allegro 200 and you would like to have only the real-time view of the graphs, you can also turn it off. That's feature number 1, and it was one of the most requested features over the last year. And we could do it in the backend to implement this. Feature number 2 is the IP group extension. There's a very simple use case behind this feature. So the IP groups are part of the IP statistics where you can configure multiple groups of subnets that should be shown as a group. The background here is that we have a lot of customers who have clusters. So for example, a bank or a factory has different groups of applications, but also different groups of systems or locations. So a group could be all telephones, or a group could be all Citrix servers. Another group could be everyone in that building, for example. Groups can overlap, and we just show statistics per group. Here, of course, we show which protocols have been used by this group, who is part of this group, so which is the top IPs in this group, to whom is this group talking. The big improvement what we did with is that the number of groups can now be configured in the settings. So default is 32, And we have now customers using that with more than 2,000 groups. Here, the big benefit is that if you have very large networks, you can use the Allegro to segment it and then really see what is happening in which network segment. And this is configurable because that, of course, takes quite a substantial amount of memory so that the small devices can use only a small number of groups. The large devices can use many groups. This is a very helpful extension because when something is part of a group, like here's group server, for example, you can also search in the IP list for that group. And then you see, for example, this IP address is part of the group office and server. And you can immediately see more information per IP address in real time. So where is that located? What kind of service is it? Feature number 3 is the multi-device function. We integrated a lot more in the background that we can have a view, a global view in real time over multiple Allegros. So the release 2.4 introduced the multi-device settings where you have multiple Allegros. You select one Allegro. The one I have here right now, the 9281. And all these Allegros are other Allegros in our office, which can be viewed by the web interface of this Allegro. The switch between each of these Allegro is very simple. Once you activate this feature, you see here all Allegros with all their network groups. So the virtual link in this case. So if you have one Allegro with one link, you will see it once here. If you have one Allegro with multiple virtual links, which are processed separately, you see like here, the D186 has default, internal, and uplink. And we can switch immediately to see what is the uplink traffic on that box. By that feature, you can switch between groups. Let's go back to, for example, 1 minute statistics. We can switch easily between the local device and, of course, the other devices. What is also new with 2.5 is we integrated a multi-IP view, which means you can search within your network now, not on one Allegro with one IP view. You can also have the top IP view of all Allegros together. That makes it very helpful if you have multiple uplinks and you're searching for the top consumer or top producers. Who is it? On which link? On the opposite side, if you know, for example, one IP address. So, for example, our disk station. If I type in this name, I can now see how much traffic has it used at which network point. So on this device, the local device, it had 738 gigabyte. On the 1F9F, we had 4.8 terabyte of traffic. By that method, I can see for a specific IP address, for a specific subnet, the top producers, consumers over multiple Allegros. And we will enhance that with the next releases for a lot more features that we have more global dashboards. Just a question, is there a number of Allegros? We designed the current concept here that it can has up to 100 Allegros. We also decided, okay, if someone goes beyond 100 Allegros, having them integrated to one solution, we have to see how it scales, but we are very sure that it works for up to 100 units. Well, the problem is mostly the browser who has to process this data. So it depends more on the computer where you display it and not on the number of Allegros. But there are also solutions to enhance that limit. Right now, 100 Allegros shouldn't be a problem. If it's more, we have to see. Number 3, that was a big request from some providers who ask us if we can do something with the initial login screen, but also with the transfer of the data. Is there any way to reduce the view of the web interface to reduce the amount of data which is transferred second by second? Because we transfer all these graphs in real time. And of course, that's a lot of data. So we found a very efficient way to do a transparent compression of this data. And we reduced it roughly by factor 5 with release 2.5. So before, this view was about 100 120 kilobytes per second. Now it's 20. And that helped a lot if you're on low-end links to take a real-time view in the web interface. Next feature is what you have already seen, that we added very simple some colors for the bandwidth. And the idea here is that by default, you tap a link with a certain speed. And of course, you would like to be, well, it should be an easy indicator that you see per virtual link group, okay, that link is a gigabit link. And if someone uses more than 800 megabit, show it yellow. If it's more than 950 megabit, show it red, that you see the utilization of that one is close to the link limit. So we added, if we see the grouping, the virtual link group feature, you can configure per group easily what's the yellow color, what's the red color, and you can also disable it. The default settings with release 2.5 is for gigabit links. If you're in a 10 gig only environment with client and servers, of course, you can then also use the 10 gig default. But if you're, for example, having a 100 megabit uplink, you can set it to different values. So that was also, we think, a very good customer request, which we integrated. Next item, we improved the LLDP decoding in two ways. Number one, we show the LLDP statistics, which, for example, in my small network, well, I'm monitoring here a part of the network, and I can see here all announced LLDP messages on the link. And of course, we aggregate that data also and remember that in our in-memory database per MAC address, per IP address, and see now which IP address, which MAC address has announced which service. So, number two, we also added that feature for the Allegro. So if you turn on, that's what we see here, the Allegro, which announces the revision and the firmware, you can enable that feature in the management interface settings. And here you can enable LLDP, that we announce on the management port the LLDP information, which firmware, what is the device type, and so on. This helps a lot in companies to show, okay, that's the test environment, that's what we have. Next request was coming more from the production side, that we have quite a lot of customers who are using the Allegro, and they ask us, can we record CRC errors? And we implemented that for the gigabit interfaces because it was, in most cases, more a connectivity item. And the Allegro now records wrong CRC frames per interface, and you can extract if there are CRC errors. So here right now, let me see if we had some CRC errors. No, that's it, link with traffic, and here also no CRC errors. If there would be CRC errors, we can extract them now. Then you get the bad CRC frames, including the CRC sequence as a packet in the PCAP. Well, most customers don't need that. If you're connected to a mirror port, CRC errors, yes, have to do something with the mirror port or with the cabling. But especially in production, where, for example, a company designing VHDL images and putting their network logic in the VHDL, that's very helpful for them. Next item is the CSV export. Version 2.4, we integrated the CSV export for the IP addresses, which means if you press this button, you get a very big CSV file of all IP addresses. If I remove the filter, so of the filtered view, if I'm pressing that now, it will be quite a big list. And it will contain all columns for all IP addresses, so a very, very big table. Very helpful for post-processing to generate reports, other graph statistics. You can do it now by CSV. With release 2.5, we added that feature for a lot of other statistics. So, for example, for protocols, layer 7, or also for layer 4 port. So there's a lot of statistics where we added the CSV button, and you can now easily post-process the graph data. Next item is the window size analytics. We added the window size analytics, which is a very simple feature. Let me disable here a few other things. So we show the theoretical window size limit of the handshake by decoding the scaling factor and adding that to every connection. Plus, we show what has been the maximum real used window size. It's very simple. If you have a connection with high latency and low window size, the throughput is limited. And with that method, we could sort easily by showing all connections which have fully used window sizes. So for example, here we have a connection of a ThinkBook in our office going to Akamai, where Akamai hosts something from Apple. And we see that in one direction, the window size was 65 kilobyte and it was fully used. So if someone complains, oh, my connection is slow, you can now easily look into that. What is the limit here? And if you combine that with filters, then it's very easy. Show me all big connections that have bad window sizes, for example. This is available for the global connection view, but of course, it's also available per IP address connections. So we could do the same for our disk station. For example, what are the worst connections to this station? What is the maximum window size, what we did, and what was the scaling? So for example, here we did a window size of 33 megabyte, and we used almost nothing of it. So that makes it very easy to debug TCP window sizes after incidents happened. Next item is we added a very simple statistics on the MAC layer. Release 2.5, we also show which layer 3 protocols have been used. Up to now, it was only layer 7. Now we also add layer 3 that you can see, oh, that MAC address used this and this protocol. So who used LACP, for example, and announced slow protocol packets? Did we see ARP traffic on that MAC address or not? And then we can extract here again. And now I'll go to the ARP packets and show them in WebShark. I can see all the ARP packets going from and to that MAC address easily. Well, that was a simple request for more metadata, so we added this to the Allegro. And you ask a question about the delay measurement of same packets monitored by different Allegros. Yes, that's possible. Let me do the following. I finish my list of items, and once I'm done, I'll show you the what we call the path measurement, which is this feature. I'll go through the list, and then I come to that feature. Next item in the list, we have seen many installation issues where the interface was a mismatch. So we had 100 megabit on one interface and gigabit on the other. And if you are running in bridge mode, well, then one side could send more traffic to the Allegro than it could send to the other end. So we show now immediately that there's a link mismatch. We also added incidents for that. So if one link goes down from gigabit to 100 megabit, or it goes offline, we can show that now in the incidents. So let me show them here. So we configure here now that, okay, show me an incident when the link status change, so on off, or when the speed changes, or when there's a duplex mismatch. You can enable that, and that helps a lot figuring out, okay, the connection might be wrong. Another feature, which was, well, very helpful, is that if you have the packet ring buffer, and for any reason you would like to just dump the complete ring buffer, we have now a button where we can extract the full buffer. And that helps a lot for just getting a big PCAP out of my measurement that I did in the last hours or days to store that. Okay, now I have 3 other small items what we changed and what is also quite helpful. Number 1 is for the geolocation. We added the option that you can configure custom subnets that will be used as local subnets. We have seen many installations which are historically grown, or installations in production sites where global subnets, so 1/8, 2/8, have been reused for local routing. They're not connected to the internet, but it's, well, for them hard to understand that we show for a specific IP address that this is in Germany, this is in the US. So we added the option that you can simply disable the geolocation for certain subnets. Another feature, which has to do with the GPDR and data protection, is that it's now possible with the Allegro to limit the time how long all the data is being stored on the Allegro. So let me search for it. Yes, the data retention timeout. Very simple. If you, for example, are allowed to do troubleshooting only for the last 48 hours, you can put in the value here, and then the Allegro will delete all old packets and all old metadata, which is older than 48 hours. So we have seen a lot of discussion in combination with data protection. And the easy solution here was that, yes, you can do troubleshooting, but only with the last hours. That helps a lot to be compliant, but also it helps also a lot to get more acceptance for the testing, that you don't record for many weeks, that you only record for the last hours. And if you don't use the data, then it's gone. Last but not least, we have the reporting feature. And with release 2.5, you can have for your scheduled or for your standard reports, you can upload a custom logo that will be integrated in that report. So if you have a company logo, your report is also your company logo. And for each report, you can have some text. So this is very helpful if you generate a PDF to show, oh, I did that report on link 5 at that location and with my company. So you have some remarks, and then it's already integrated in the PDF. So that makes it a lot easier for that reporting PDF for post-processing to know, okay, it was on this date on that location.